This is 7.5 digestive, excretory, and endocrine systems. Let's look at it. The purpose of the digestive system is to break down food mechanically and chemically to provide the food with nutrients. To provide the body with nutrients and energy. What do we mean by nutrients? Well, there's 6 kinds of nutrients that you need: carbs, fats, proteins. We've talked about those things before. Water, obviously. So what's the vitamins and minerals? You hear these words all the time. Vitamins are like catalysts. They're like organic catalysts for reactions like enzymes and that sort of thing. They act like that. Whereas minerals are like inorganic things that the body needs. Things like metal, phosphorus is inorganic, things like that we need. You're thinking metal. This is like iron, right? Iron's metal, sodium, potassium, those sorts of things. They're minerals. You need those too. We're going to look at the pathway that digestion takes, or the food takes through the body. So when you take food in, first starts in the mouth. This is where it's mechanically digested. What does that mean? It's like physically broken down. And then you have a chemical there called saliva. It begins to break down starches. And then it goes to the esophagus. The esophagus is just a tube. It's just a tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. There is this action that is pushing food down called peristalsis. That is actually, it's like an involuntary smooth muscle action that pushes food from the mouth into the body when you swallow. And then it goes to the stomach. What's happening in the stomach? In the stomach, there's chemical digestion going on. You have hydrochloric acid, or HCl, there that is breaking down the food. You have an enzyme that breaks down proteins called Pepsin in the stomach, and it's also being mechanically broken down. So you can think of the stomach as like sloshing all of those juices and food together in order to make this stuff called chyme. Looks like chyme. It's pronounced chyme. And it's kind of like food stomach juice soup. It's kind of gross, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to taste it unless, Then there's the small intestines. So the small intestine is a long pathway. It's chemical digestion of food. Somewhat is going on in the small intestine. Primary use of the small intestine is absorption. And so it's absorbing the nutrients. Small intestine has a ton of surface area. So not only is it very long, like 12 to 20 feet in most people, but the inside of the small intestine has lots of folds on folds, and it just kind of absorbs the food. Right, absorbs the food into the bloodstream so that the cells of the body can use that nutrients. Large intestines is next. So from the small intestine to the large intestine. Purpose of the large intestine, sometimes you'll hear it called the colon. Removes water, so it dehydrates the food, creates solid waste, which is then expelled from the body. What else is going on in the large intestine is there's beneficial bacteria. Those bacteria are further breaking down some of the indigestible things that we eat, like cellulose and some other things. And there's also vitamin production going on with those bacteria. So you hear things like probiotics, those sorts of things that are actually for those bacteria that live in your body that are actually helpful to you. You have a lot of beneficial bacteria in your large intestine, very important part of our lives. There are some accessory organs. So food passes out of the body at this point in large intestines, just so we know. There are some accessory organs, meaning that food is not going through these organs, but these are a very important part of the digestive system. They are the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. The liver produces something called bile. The bile is a substance that breaks down fat, and then the gallbladder stores bile. And so you can live without your gallbladder. You don't need a place to store bile. However, you do need to limit fatty foods because you don't have a storage of bile there, right? So if you have your gallbladder taken out, they're going to be like, you can't eat certain things, which makes sense. And then you have the pancreas. Pancreas is an endocrine gland, but a digestive gland. There's another term that we're not going to insert here that we could. For the digestive system, the pancreas is producing a chemical called bicarbonate, and the purpose of the bicarbonate is it helps to counteract stomach acid so that it doesn't burn the small intestines. Yeah, there we go. That's it on digestive system. Excretory system. The purpose of the excretory system is to remove ammonia. from the body. Ammonia builds up from the digestion of proteins, and then we have to get rid of it because ammonia is not good. Converts ammonia in our bodies to something called urea, and that urea is then made into urine, which is excreted from the body. Excretory system is made up of the kidneys, bladder. So let's look a little bit at urea conversion. Ammonia is converted to urea. You don't have to know that chemical process going on there, and it's mainly happens in the liver, but it's also happening in the kidney to a lesser degree, and then that urea is then going to be combined with water and some other things to make urine, which has to do with kidney function. This is happening in the kidneys. And so what's going on in the kidneys? You have these two big blood vessels that are going to one big blood vessel to each kidney, and all the blood in your body is going to be filtered through there. And so basically what the kidneys are doing is they're pulling all of this stuff out. They're like filtering all this stuff out and pulling a lot of the fluid out of the blood, and then they're going to put some of that fluid back into the blood, but keep the stuff that's filtered out of the blood, right? You can think of it that way. Each little unit that's doing this is called a nephron. You can see all the parts of a nephron. You don't have to know any of those. But basically, not only is the kidney filtering the blood, but it's also deciding how much fluid gets put back into the blood. It's making this decision, of course, helped by the brain in order to do this. And so it's controlling things like blood pressure and that sort of thing as well. So it's a very, very important organ. And so the brain's basically saying, hey, we need more or less water, and the kidney decides how much is going to be then excreted as urine. So very important organ, but you only need one of them. That's why we have two, just in case. Endocrine systems next. Endocrine system is made up of glands that release hormones into the bloodstream so that the brain can communicate with the glands in order to cause them to do a thing. What are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers that are produced in one part of the body to communicate with another part of the body. Pretty simple. And they're released into the bloodstream. Endocrine glands always released into the bloodstream. And then there's some sort of target cell. What is that? So like a hormone is secreted by one part of the body. The target cell is the only cell that knows what that hormone is. All the other cells are going to see it and realize, hey, that's not mine, and they're not going to mess with it. And so that's the simplest way of thinking about that. Major glands of the endocrine system, top to bottom. Hypothalamus. It's a part of the brain. It's the master control gland of the endocrine system. It receives all the input from the rest of the body and then makes decisions based upon that input. And it's going to send messages to the second in command, always to the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is then going to receive that from the hypothalamus and then send out other hormones to the rest of the body and tell those organs to do things, right? And so the chain of command is hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and then other organs like the thyroid. The thyroid just controls the rate of metabolism. The parathyroid, which is these tiny little organs on the thyroid, they're going to control calcium levels in the body. They communicate with the bones, which are going to store that calcium. The adrenal glands, which are on top of the kidneys, hence their name, add on top of renals, kidneys. These control the fight or flight response in the body and using adrenaline. And then the pancreas, which is going to control the body's blood sugar, and then sex organs, which have to do with primary and secondary sexual characteristics, which we're going to talk about in the next section.